So, today we will be looking at how to write the research plan. This is your first task to earn the 3 ECTS from Master Thesis, Part 1. What are we looking for when we are asking for a research plan? You have your ideas, some initial ideas about what kind of thesis you have in your mind. Students who have not been with us before, last time we looked into, from Theseus, students looked into possible theses that have been written in the topics that they are interested in. So your task for the next session is to find from Theseus, hopefully master level theses, which have been conducted in the areas that you are interested, and have a look at the thesis, what they have done, what kind of thesis they have done. Okay? So we have some elements here. There are 6 elements that are listed. We'll go through them one by one in order to accomplish a successful research plan. The first element is the research motivation. When the first thing is, why should you do this thesis? You know, writing a thesis, 30 ECTS, big work, is a big work, right? So why should we write it? In the introduction chapter of your thesis, you should convince your readers. I mean, these theses will be published and hopefully somebody will read them. So we are not writing it just for earning the degree, but hopefully it will be of use to some people. So why do we need the thesis? So we need the research motivation. And the research motivation should be provided at 3 levels. So first, the motivation at the industry or society level. Second, if you are doing this for a specific company, which is not always the case, but if you are doing it, if there is a assigner, commissioner of the thesis, certain company, then why is it important for that company? So that is the second level of motivation. And finally, why is it important for you? In providing the motivation, you should be supporting your arguments with citations. So it cannot be that you start, sometimes we see some motivation that, oh, I'm so interested in this topic, this is a very contemporary topic, and I love marketing, and this is why I will do this thesis. That's not a good motivation. The motivation should start from in the world. So we are trying to solve a problem at the practical world. So what's the problem? And to understand that, to convince that there is a problem, you should be providing evidences. There can be some statistics, some articles in a newspaper. So we are talking about, for example, climate change. We may be talking about Industry 4.0, the digital revolution. So you need to convince with citations, statistics, with news that yes, there is a need for this kind of research, that you are not going to be reinventing the wheel. Okay, so that is the relevance for the industry. And then the company, and then the motivation for yourself. So I have picked up a good example of a research plan to share with you. And now we will also go through that so that we see what is expected at this level. So that is the thesis by an earlier student. who has started his studies in 2015, Danilo, and his topic of the thesis was multicultural dynamics of global virtual teams. Global virtual teams, multicultural dynamics. So what do we understand from that before reading the motivation? Well, we understand that we are talking about perhaps a multinational company which has project teams where the members are not all located in the same room. They are located in different parts of the world, and they are meeting virtually. They are doing the project together in virtual teams located in different parts of the world. So that's what global virtual teams mean. And this is something that that is often seen in multinational companies. And of course, the people in these teams are from different cultural backgrounds. So there is a, let's say, member from India, member from Finland, China, Bangladesh, Turkey. So it's a multicultural environment. And of course, when the environment is multicultural, there are some issues related to that. Okay, expectations can be different. You know, you have different expectations. I have my own expectations. Sometimes they clash. There are some issues. So in the dynamics, you know, if we think of a temporal perspective, in the dynamics of the team, there may be some challenges. So this is aiming to look into those challenges. And here we start with the motivation. So here we see first the motivation at the society level, and already here we see a lot of citations, right? That's what I want to see in your motivation section as well. So your motivation section should have 2 or 3. If there is a company, 3. If not, 2. The first level is motivation for the society/industry. So here, first of all, he is defining what are global virtual teams. They are groups of remotely distributed employees geographically and organizationally in different time zones, different skill sets, etc. They bring many advantages to companies. But there are also challenges related to communication and collaboration. And earlier research is suggesting that there is need for further research about this topic. So it is important that once you have kind of the idea of your topic, you start reading the literature. One of the very good places where you can get ideas for your thesis is usually every article ends with suggestions for future research. When you write your thesis, also the last section in the discussion chapter will suggest, okay, you finished your thesis, you did something. If somebody else after you were to continue some research in the same direction, what would you recommend? So almost every article will end with some suggestions for future research. So if you review the recent latest articles, you may get some ideas about what kind of research you may undertake for your own thesis. So here we see that based on the literature, there is suggestions for conducting further research in this area. And then Danilo was working for the company IBM, and he is presenting here the perspective from the companies, the motivation from the company's perspective, introducing the company, saying that in IBM, global virtual teams are used. He has been talking also with the managers in IBM in Finland, saying that also from the manager's perspective, it is challenging to work in global virtual teams, and cultural challenges is mentioned here. So from also the company perspective, it will add value to study the challenges of global virtual teams. And finally, the personal motive. Why, as a student, Danilo or you are interested for doing this kind of research. Okay? So if there is a company, you will have 3 levels of motivation. If there is no specific company, 2 levels of motivation. That's what is expected for the part of motivation. Any questions on this? And of course, all the citations that you have, we should have at the end the list, the references. So you need to also familiarize yourself very well with YAML reporting instructions. I want to see both citations and the references according to YAML reporting instructions. Okay? I will be, and of course, the committee, everyone will be very strict now. We won't be as soft as we have been in some of the lectures. You need to stick with the YAML reporting instructions without exception. Okay? So I would also like to see the references in at the end of your research plan. Any questions about the motivation? Are we all clear?
So in motivation part, as I mentioned earlier, that I am doing industry-based reporting. So my motivation is two part of motivation, because I am not research about any company record.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you are going to study a specific industry.
Yeah.
Why is it important to study that industry in Bangladesh? You need to convince us that, okay, there is need to study that industry from the industry perspective. And of course, I think the easiest is the personal motivation. We are more interested in the industry motivation, that it contributes to the industry. Because if you remember our if you remember our assessment criteria, the first criteria is about the choice of the topic. So here we have the assessment criteria, which is our Bible. So if you are interested what kind of grade you will get, this is what we'll tell. You know, we always go with this Bible when we assess. So justifications, choice of the topic. Now, the choice of topic is justified from the viewpoint of developing the author's own work. So you have only here personal motivation. Well, you will get the grade of 1 from this, not more. Let's go to grade of 3. The topic is justified from the viewpoint of developing the commissioning party's working life. So if there is only, let's say you are doing it for some company, if there is only motivation at company level, you get only the grade of 3 maximum. if that is a good justification. To get the grade of 5, the choice is justified from the viewpoint of working life reformation, or value of new research, or wider social importance. Now, always think don't think what is the relevance for the company, think what is the relevance for the society. Always think big. So we need these 3 levels, and especially if you want to get the grade of 5 from this criterion, the societal perspective, that it should bring something new to the society, not for the company. So think about it from the broad level when you are providing your motivation. Now, assuming that we have the motivation, the next thing is to turn that motivation into concrete. Motivation is broad. We need to turn that into concrete problems, objectives, and research questions. Let me remind you that the thesis is something about, I would say, including the title page, the description page, all the references, all the appendices. The reference, the thesis will be about 70, 80 pages. Okay? And in 70, 80 pages, we cannot solve all the problems of the world. So we need to focus our research questions. The idea here is to limit ourselves to a focused area, but to go deep in that area. It's not to stay broad and stay shallow, but to focus and go deep. And in doing that, usually we start with the problem. So what's the problem that you are aiming to solve? And that problem comes also from the motivation. We will turn that into objectives. So what is the thesis aiming for? What are the objectives of your research? And then that one we turn into research questions. And here I want to emphasize that the best would be that you have only one question. We looked into a number of theses, right? You remember in our first session, we were scanning through some theses that are available as sample theses in our Optima workspace. And we had some theses which had like 4 or 5 questions. The more questions you have, as we said, we are aiming for a product of 70, 80 pages. The diverse, the more diverse it gets. And at the end, you cannot, let's say, answer 5 diverse questions in 70, 80 pages. My suggestion is aim for 1 question, maximum 2. You may have some sub-questions, but having sub-questions should not mislead you. Those sub-questions should be really sub-questions, meaning that when you answer the sub-questions, you will be answering automatically the main question. So the sub-questions shouldn't be irrelevant from the main question. They should be related to the main question. And this is actually one of the most challenging parts for many students, how to come up with these focused questions. And in doing that, it's easy to write the question, but we need a lot of thinking. Every word is important. Think about every single word, what it means. And this is the exercise that we will be doing with you. So I am hoping now next week is holiday week. We are not going to be meeting. So you have 2 weeks time I am hoping that during these 2 weeks' time, you will be focusing, aiming to develop your research plan, and especially, you know, it's all up to you. You may target to have all the 6 parts ready. Excellent. But I would suggest that at least all of us target the 2 parts. That is the motivation and the second part, the research problem, objectives and questions. So in 2 weeks' time, when we meet on Thursday morning, we will be looking at that needs some work and that needs some rework. You know, I will be putting my inputs into whether, okay, your motivation is at a good level, and second, whether you have the focused research questions that you may continue for your thesis topic. Research questions are very important. We will spend some time on this. You know, you may need to do some rework on this. As I said, every word is important. Think about what means that word for your research. So I may ask you, okay, what do you mean by this word? So when you are selecting the words for your research questions, you should be very careful. You should have a good understanding of what you are really meaning. This is important because research questions will guide everything in the rest of your thesis. You know, the starting point is indeed one of the very important parts of your thesis. Because it will guide every choice that you make for the thesis. What kind of literatures you will review, what kind of methodology you will use. They will all be determined by what research questions you have, what objectives you have. In that respect, this second part is very important. It needs thinking. It's not easy. And I think that during the next 2 weeks, hopefully you have the time to think about your thesis topic, to provide the motivation. That also requires some reading about your topic, and to come up with the objectives and questions for your thesis. So that's the task you have until we meet in 2 weeks' time.
So these 2 tasks we'll do in the format, right? Main format.
So I will tell you, I will share with you, there is a research template, there is a research plan template. I will share with you the template. I can already show that to you. So the template, I have it already here. That will be after today's session in the Optima workspace under the research plan folder. So here I will put the lecture notes, I'll put the video, I'll put also the template. So what I want you to do is that you use this template, because at the end, once we agree that, okay, your research plan is ready, our official procedure is that you will be making an electronic submission of your thesis proposal. So here, for the electronic submission, you may be better seeing it on your computer. So when you have the opening page, the starting page on your computers, you have this forms. And when you go to those forms, I see different forms. I don't see that form. So there, during the studies, is Tarek, are you checking at the moment the forms?
Yeah.
So if you check, let's check from your computer, because my computer doesn't show that form as I'm not a student. So your starting page, right? So click on the forms. Here. So during studies, so is everyone there at the same time? So you are also there, great. Choose number 2 during studies. And under that, master's thesis topic proposal. You see that? Master's thesis topic proposal. So forms during studies, under that bachelor's/master's thesis proposal. And the proposal form that you will see there is actually the same template that I will be sharing with you as a Word document. So in that, the first one, it will be called motivation. And you will see there the instructions that you see here in the Word document. So once we do it in the Word document, all you need to do is just copy paste from the Word document to the right places. So here, what we say research motivation, in the electronic submission template, it's called only motivation. And once you do your motivation here at 2 or 3 levels, once that's ready, you just copy paste this to the right place in the form. We have this kind of an official procedure. You submit your proposal with the electronic form, and in doing that, one important thing for all of you, you will be asked to choose which program. So you will choose master's degree program in international business management. When you choose that, then all the applications come to me. And then what we will do, when I say we, not you, but I and my colleagues will do, is that we will think about the topic and we will find out who would be the right supervisor for your thesis. And then you will be receiving an email telling you that, okay, your supervisor is Mr. or Mrs. X. Okay? And then you will be also starting to work with your supervisors. So your supervisors will be the main persons who will help you in guiding your thesis. And here we have these common seminars that will already teach you how to do every part of the thesis, how to write the introduction chapter, how to write the literature review chapter. So those kinds of common things we will cover here, but then specific your thesis related issues, you will be meeting regularly, hopefully, with your thesis supervisor to talk about your specific things. Okay? So that's the template. Any questions about the research problem, objectives, research questions? Is this clear? Yes?
One question related to this that we need to do in the next 2 weeks. Does it have to be the final one? I mean, I really don't have time to make one really well now.
So you don't have the time, no worries. So everyone has, as we said, own pace here. So I don't know, maybe you were not there when I said this. So some of the students, at least 3 of the students, are targeting to have the full thesis ready by October the 15th. Okay? Others may not have the same deadline. So in that respect, you know, I will be asking after 2 weeks, okay, who has what part ready? And let's say Nupur. Nupur says, I have everything ready. Okay, then I will ask her to present her whole research plan. We will be, you know, the idea is here that we learn also from others' issues. So Nupur will definitely have a lot of problems with her research questions, which here by dialogue we will try to solve. Okay, the idea here is not to say, oh, she's done so badly. The idea here is to help her to find the right research questions for her thesis. So that will be a learning for all of us, and that will also maybe get some ideas for you or for somebody else. And I will ask, okay, sorry, you know, and you'll say, okay, I did only the motivation. Okay, you know, you do what you, and then the next week I will ask again, okay, what's the situation?
Yeah, well, I was like kind of like hoping starting doing this really for like May or something when I get all my courses done, so I can focus on this. Like,
well, in May we won't have these sessions.
Yeah.
So you know, it's all up to you. But as I said, you know, it's important that you. I don't think this will cause a lot of work for you. It may be wiser to do it now, during these 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. The sessions we will have, we will cover everything. Also, you know, also if we I may be repeating this, but we will cover during the spring all the 10 topics here, which also belong to thesis part 2. The idea here is that the summer, when I say summer, starting from May, you know, we will end at the end of April the seminars. So you have May, June, July, August. So the next seminars will continue beginning of September. So 4 months, especially those who are targeting to deliver the full thesis in October the 15th, that those 4 months are very important. So the earlier you have your thesis idea, the faster you get, you know, doing the thesis. You make the best, hopefully, the best use of those 4 months to progress with your thesis.
So we get 45 days in thesis part 2 before submitting the main.
About, yes.
Yeah.
About.
So I don't know actually the summer break. Is the whole university shut down in this summer?
So when I say it's not the summer, the 4 months is not our summer holiday.
Okay.
But I think we have still in May, I think you may have some courses in May.
Yes.
And we have the summer school. If you want to take some courses from the summer school, you can check YAMK Summer School from the main page under education. We have the summer school, which is an intensive period starting, I think, late May, early June, and that ends it takes about 3-4 weeks until the mid-summer festival in about 20th of June. And then after that, the whole school is almost shut down in July. So if you need any help, the teachers, they have your supervisor, for example, your potential supervisor, will have their holidays starting, I think, somewhere around 10th of June until, you know, they have two months, 8 weeks of holidays from 10th of June until 6th, 7th of August. So during those 2 months, you may not be hearing from your supervisor. So it's only 2 months that you'll be cut away from the supervisor, but of course in June still there is you can use the facilities here. It's not shut down. I mean, even in July you can come in and go and sit at the library. You know. So the next stage, the third thing, what we are looking for here, so-called the literature review. Now, this is the research plan. This is not your literature review chapter. The literature review chapter, which we will talk, I think in the next session, it's going to be something like 15, 20 pages. You know, that's not what we are asking you at this moment. What we are asking you at this moment is that, okay, based on your research questions, what areas of literature should you review? So here, what we are after is, do you see this one? I see that one. Okay, you don't see it. Interesting. I have this Zoom bar there in the middle of my screen. You don't see it. Good. So what are the main concepts? So the first thing is, what are the key concepts related to your research question? We need to think about that. So if you were to write the keywords for your research, what are they? Research topics. What are the keywords for your research topic? What are the key concepts? That's what, by the way, I forgot about Danilo. You know, we started talking about the summer. I forgot about Danilo. Let's see what kind of research questions Danilo has had. Let's have a look at that. Oh my God, yes. I thought that my screen got again frozen. Sometimes it's doing that. So let's get back to Danilo's good research plan. Let's have a look at the research problem. So the research problem, challenges and opportunities faced by global virtual teams due to multicultural diversity. So that's the problem. The objective, to verify how global project teams deal with different cultures and what type of challenges they are presented with. Well, the English is...
on the screen.
Oh my God, why so? Because I still have the slideshow there. Yeah, thank you for telling me. Now it should be. Yes. I don't know why it was frozen that time. So let's get back to what I was saying. He has the research problem, challenges and opportunities due to multicultural diversity, objective to verify, well, maybe that's not the best of the words, you know, to verify. Sounds very strong. Remember, in the thesis, when we are writing, when we are making academic writing, we should be soft in our sayings. You know, we should not be like, oh, this is the best, or we don't use any exaggerated, extreme vocabulary. And to verify is also a bit strong. How project teams, global virtual project teams, deal with different cultures and what kind of challenges they are presented with. And also the English is not the best, but we can understand it. And the question is only one question: how can GVTs overcome challenges of multicultural diversity? Actually, this would need a sub-question or a preliminary question. First of all, you need to understand what are the challenges, right? So it would need a question about what are the challenges of multicultural diversity faced by GVTs, and second, how can they overcome these challenges? So this is, for example, quite a typical kind of research questions you can find. What are the challenges? How can we overcome these challenges? So, simple, understandable. We know that this is an important problem. Global virtual teams, they are in multinational companies, you know, they are everywhere. Even now, you know, I am like last week, Libin was connected via Zoom, and we had some challenges, right? We could hear what she was saying. So I needed to mute her from here. So, you know, there can be some challenges. when we meet virtually, how do we overcome those challenges? So that is the research question of Danilo's thesis. Let us get back to the literature review. To move this again. So in this section called literature review, we are asking that you start with identifying what are your key concepts. That's number one. And then think about what are the literatures that you will be, which areas, which fields of the literatures you are going to be reviewing for your literature review chapter. That's all what we are asking here. So we are asking the names of the areas. And in doing that, remember, we said that everything will be guided by your research questions. So when you are picking up the areas of literature, think about how will they contribute to answering my research questions. So the idea here is not that you just include everything, that you make some soup without any thinking. So the more you put, the riskier it is for you, because we will always be asking, okay, what's the relevance of this to answering your research questions? So careful thinking is needed at every stage. And every choice you make, as you remember from the assessment criteria, every choice you make should be justified for earning a higher grade. So always have your research questions guide you, and think from the point of view of your research questions about how they are relevant to answer your research questions. Shall we have a break?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just close the...
Or so I'll be here like 3 years.
So we looked at what we understand from what we should do in the section about the literature review. Now let's have a look at the research plan of Danilo to see what he has included under that part. So what are the relevant key concepts? He has included possible enablers and inhibitors to success within global virtual teams, business theories, working with different cultures. So topics will include cultural diversity, managing diverse and remote teams, diversity management, inclusive leadership. Okay, these are preliminary ideas. Probably when you get wiser when you start going into these topics. You get wiser when you read more. Probably you will shrink these. You will not have, this is quite wide looking, but at this preliminary stage, we want you to think widely, but then they will be narrowed and shaped better when you get into those areas. So which areas of literature do you plan to review? Global virtual teams, multicultural teams, managing cultural diversity, international, so like international business globalization, okay, human resource management, these are quite broad, international business globalization, but maybe more specific here are multicultural teams, managing cultural diversity. So when we say focus, also your literature review should be focused. If you start with a literature review on globalization, globalization covers so many things that, this is not focused on the research questions. Likewise, when you write there international business, that covers everything. When you say international business, it covers so many things. It's not focused on the research question. So I'm not hopefully expecting you to have international business and globalization in your list of topics for literature review. Rather, more focused topics like multicultural teams, managing cultural diversity, global virtual teams, virtual team management. These are more specific related to the research questions. Even human resource management, while that is relevant, still it is too broad. It covers everything. So I am looking for more focused ideas related to your research questions. Perhaps I will not do it like a presentation because sometimes it's getting stuck there. So the fourth section in the research plan, that is the methodology, research design methodology. Here we are asking for the approach. Now, the idea of making a literature review is not only to show that, okay, you have read a lot of things. In the thesis, everything should be connected nicely with each other, starting from your research questions. After the literature review, you are expected to come up with a theoretical framework which will be your guide in doing the empirical study. You are expected to do an empirical study, proper research, meaning that you will be collecting data, you will be analyzing the data to help you answer your research questions. However, before doing that, you need a map. So I may have or I may not have told you, but we have two worlds. One, the practical world, and the other is the conceptual theoretical world. So we start with identifying a problem in the practical world. But to solve that problem, what we do first is we go first up to the theoretical world. We review the literature, not just for reviewing it, but coming up with a framework, that's a map, that will help us to solve the problem in the practical world. So how are we going to collect data? What kind of data are we going to collect? In finding an answer to that, we need a map, right? And the map will be your theoretical framework, and that will come from your literature review. So you are not reviewing the literature for the sake of reviewing it. You are reviewing it for the purpose of finding a framework that you will use in your empirical study. Under this section, what we are asking at this moment is that you think about, in answering your research questions, will you be taking a qualitative approach or a quantitative approach? We have to perhaps clarify ourselves what we mean by qualitative, what we mean by quantitative. Usually, if we have questions like how, if we are looking for deep insights about a topic, for those kinds of research questions, we would be pursuing a qualitative approach. Qualitative approach means you will collect qualitative data via interviews, and the idea there is to gather deep insights about that topic. The other option is when you are testing some hypothesis. So quantitative approach means you will be collecting quantitative numerical data, and you will be probably using the survey method. You will be collecting data from a sample of minimum 100 respondents. Then you will be using a statistics package. Here at school, we have SPSS. You may have in some of your courses used it. And you will be analyzing that data using a statistics package. So you will be doing quantitative data analysis. Did you take qualitative or quantitative data analysis courses? Which one did you take? Who took qualitative? Qualitative? Okay. Who took quantitative? Nobody. So am I right in my assumption that you will probably using a qualitative approach in your thesis? You already know that.
Because I'm bad in numbers.
You are bad in numbers? Oh my God. Independent of what kind of research question you have, you know that it will be qualitative. Okay. So not a difficult choice for you. Now, this is one choice, right? In your thesis, you make different choices, and the choice about methodology is one of them. Important is here why you make that choice. You need to here tell us why do you think that qualitative approach suits better to answer your research questions than quantitative approach. Your justification should not be that I am bad with numbers, so I'm going to use qualitative approach. Okay? And I also want you to think about already from the beginning, where will you collect the data? So qualitative approach means will you be studying a specific company, or will you be interviewing some experts about the field? How will you collect data? When we talk about data, we have secondary data and primary data. So secondary data is data that is already available to all. It has not been collected for the purpose of your thesis, but you may use it. If there is already available secondary data, why not use it? It saves you costs, it saves you energy. Fine. So what kind of secondary data is available already? What kind of primary data are you planning to collect? Can you access? So if you are doing a research about Bangladesh, can you access the data from Finland? So is it realistic? So what we are looking for here is your plan, research plan about how you will do the empirical study. Is it realistic? You know, if you tell me that you are going to do an empirical study about Latin American companies in Argentina versus Brazil, you know, I will ask you, how realistic is it? You know, secondary data, do you have enough secondary data in English? Or if you say that, okay, I will do something about a Finnish company, you know, then we need to discuss about how you will access the data about that Finnish company. So these are things that you need to think about in your research plan. This is kind of the research plan is for us kind of a check tool that we see that, okay, what is the product that you are aiming for, and can you achieve that? It has been the case, unfortunately, at doctoral level studies that, you know, you do a lot of literature review, and then you realize that you can't access the data. So that will not be a very fortunate situation. That's why we want to already start thinking about how you can access what kind of data already from the beginning, that we don't encounter any unfortunate situations. It's always good to have some options in mind, you know. You may have that, you may say that, oh, there's an excellent company I want to do my thesis about, but what if they say, no, sorry, we don't have time for you to do your thesis? You need to have some options, alternatives. Let's have a look at Danilo's methodology. So he's suggesting that he will be doing qualitative research through semi-structured interviews with managers, project managers, and employees working for global virtual teams in different IBM locations across the globe. That sounds convincing. So he will be collecting qualitative data via interviews. He is also himself working at IBM, so he can have easily access to other managers inside the company. He already has also information. He also has access to secondary data from the company's documents. So perfect. That's good enough for this section. So qualitative research, semi-structured interviews with IBM managers from around the world. Convincing. The fifth section, that is about, okay, called potential findings. That is about what do you think will come out from this? You know, when you make the thesis, what is your expectation about the outcomes? What are you expecting? So this is again a checkpoint. Now, when you are writing this, perhaps you should take into account your objectives. So my checkpoint will be, I will say, okay, what you are expecting to find out is that matching with your objectives. So that's to make you, perhaps this is another way of asking what are your objectives. So what are you expecting to find out? And for whom will that be useful? Okay, based on your findings, who can gain what? So when Tariq will investigate about the garment industry in Bangladesh, based on his research, who can do what? This is to check that, okay, he's not doing it for just doing it, that it will be useful for some people, yeah, hopefully. It's about the relevance of your topic. Let's have a look at what Danilo has provided in this area. He aims to clarify what are the different practices used by global virtual teams in dealing with different cultures, how teams benefit from them, and what challenges come with their adoption. It will be useful, the findings will be useful to teams across the globe that are either already working in GVT format or are possibly going to be. So the findings will not be only useful for IBM, but also many multinationals which have global virtual teams. They may find the findings of this study useful. Okay. there is one last section, and that is the time plan. So I have divided the thesis into some certain parts, as we will also be proceeding in our seminars. So the first target is to deliver the research plan. Then you will be writing your literature review chapter. Then we will write the introduction chapter, methodology chapter, results chapter, discussion chapter, so the 5 chapters of the thesis. And then, of course, there is also the description page, the abstract, so the draft thesis will be ready. So what I am asking you to do here is to put some target dates, month and year, so that we know who is aiming for what pace. Okay? And as we do these, as you write these chapters, I will be asking that you present them in the seminar. So there will be all the time some presentations. Somebody will be presenting, you know, some fast student will present their methodology chapter, while a slower paced student will present the introduction chapter. So we will have all the time some presentations, and they are to help you to get feedback. So these are the sections, 6 sections that I would like you to have in your research plan. Let me repeat them once again. Research motivation at 2 or 3 levels. The most important is the industry/society level. Research problem, objectives, and questions, they should be focused 1 or maximum 2 questions. If you have one main question, you may have 1 or 2 sub-questions maximum. So that will make sure that they are focused. Think about every single word that you use, what they mean. Those are things that I will be asking when you present your research questions. What kinds of literature you need to review? Mainly some broad areas, broad but focused on your research questions, not international business, not globalization, not human resource management. Research design methodology, are you aiming for a qualitative research or a quantitative research? And whatever your choice, how are you planning to collect the data? From where will you get the data? Potential findings, they should match with your objectives. What are you expecting to find? For whom your findings will be useful? And then a draft time plan for the different chapters that I have presented over there. And I will be sharing this template. So here we have all the sections. And in the electronic submission, there is also this kind of preliminary content of the thesis. I have put here, you know, I've shared with you already the kind of the structure in the first folder. So there is the structure of the thesis. I think this isn't so important at this moment. You can only write their introduction chapter, literature review, methodology, results, discussion, or you can just skip it. You know, that's maybe too early to, you know, provide a full structure of your thesis. But if you wish, you may take example from this file. Any questions? Is this clear what is expected from the research plan?